This is narrowboat Tixall, moored on the Staffordshire and Worcestershire Canal near Wolverhampton. At first glance, the boat seems conventional enough, but hidden inside is a surprise. So let's have a look around. Up at the bow is a well deck, nothing out of the ordinary there. There are solar panels on the roof, albeit small ones, so no unusual electrics are likely. The traditional stern is entirely unremarkable. Let's step inside to the saloon and galley, which seem pretty standard, although the most eagle-eyed viewer may spot a clue here. It's not this dining table or stove, which are exactly as you'd expect. A methylated spirit cooker is very rare, but that's not the surprise. And here's the rest of the galley, with fridge and sink. You're probably getting the gist of this now, but the bathroom is normal, a nice size with toilet, basin and shower. And the last room before the engine room is the bedroom, with the usual narrowboat compact double. So, what's the score here? Let's look at some clues, like in the galley, below a clock, there's a pressure gauge. On the roof, despite it being midsummer, are bags of coal. And above the engine room, there's the largest chimney you'd ever expect, behind what appears to be a whistle. So yes, it's the engine room that holds something special, which you'd already guessed correctly, is not the usual narrowboat diesel, but a steam engine.
The engine is an Anthony Beaver engine, one of only two in steam narrowboats. The design is a leak compound, so it uses the steam twice. You've got your high pressure cylinder, which is smaller, because in theory full boiler pressure could be in that one. Once it's used, it then exhausts into the low pressure, and because the steam energy has been used a little bit, the pressure is a lot lower in the low pressure than the high, because it's already been used. And so therefore we've got a bigger piston to accommodate for the less pressure that's running through it. Once it's been used through the engine, we then pump it through a thing called a steam condenser. Canal and river water is pumped through this steam condenser to keep it cold. Once it has been pumped through, it then condenses the steam back into water and is used again in the boiler. It gets pumped back into the boiler. There's like a little holding tank behind the boiler, that's called the hot well. The oil that's gone through the engine is separated from the water by some little like pads that have to be replaced every now and again. That removes all the oil from the water, and then we can then pump that back into the boiler. There is a pump on the steam engine, so as and when the water level needs topping up, I just close the valve for the pump. And instead of pumping it round the tank, it pumps it into the boiler. And that's just a little tiny valve on the left-hand side of the control panel. A lot of people ask if there's a gearbox in the boat, and there is none. It's all direct drive from the engine to the propeller. If we want to go into reverse, the actual engine goes into reverse. And this seems to just baffle people's minds, but steam engines are double acting, and the reverser actually controls the valve admission. You can reverse the valves and the engine will then run in backwards, and that is how I control the boat. The actual engine goes physically in forwards and reverse. So it's very, very simple. No gearboxes, nothing. There's less to go wrong, really. They're just so simple. You can literally take them apart on the boat and shim things together with beer cans or something like that. They're so crude, but that's what makes them great.
The basic controls seem simple enough, mind you. And from the steering position at the back, there is an easily visible row of repeater gauges which give information about the high and low piston pressures, as well as the suction in the condenser, plus, somewhat peculiarly, a digital readout of RPM. But whereas a diesel engine can be started with the turn of a key, things are a bit more complicated aboard Tixall.
There's a lot of preparation. You've got to get the dead fire out from yesterday, all the clinker and everything like that. Empty the ash pan where all the ash falls into. If need be, clean the tubes in the boiler. That's a messy job. And then you've got to lay your new fire, a bit of wood, a few fire lighters, and you're off. Then a little bit of coal on top of that once you're done. We'll be waiting about an hour now before we leave. From cold to running, it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours. You can't just turn a key and go. It's a lot of preparation.
An air vent below the firebox lets plenty of oxygen in, and soon the boiler was sizzling like a kettle. The system would automatically belch at regular intervals to relieve excess pressure. Haven't we all? But in this day and age, should we really be using coal, even in limited amounts, such as the odd steamboat? It's yucky stuff.
We can't really burn briquettes. They're not very good for the boiler. They're very sulfuric. We are exempt from the smokeless laws and regulations, and we do have our sources to get natural coal. We used to burn Welsh steam coal, which was basically smokeless. We have to get it from overseas now. I think the batch that we're on at the moment is Kazakhstan coal. It's very hot, but it's very smoky. But we manage. We just have to, every now and again, we have to clean the tubes because they do get very sooty. You do get the odd one or two people that, like, well, this is wrong. But like I tell people, there's not really a lot I can do about that. It's steam powered and I can't exactly just turn it off. I need a fire in it to go. So most people are understanding, to be fair.
Before we set off, there's a little fettling to do, which involves adding oil in 2 locations. The first is for bearing oil, like the big ends. The other gets pumped into the cylinders to lubricate the pistons. Then some more general oiling is also done to ensure smooth operation of the mechanicals. By now the engine is starting to show signs of life, with all manner of gurgles and wisps of steam pushing out of the pipes. It's all a bit baffling to me, but Matthew trained as a steam engineer on the railways and is qualified in steam engineering. As well as this narrowboat, he also operates the engine on a steam tug, and he owns and runs a steamroller too. A quick tightening of the prop shaft, which was wobbly, and the engine was ready to be engaged. I might be going mad, but I'd swear it's saying cold turkey, cold turkey, cold turkey. Cold turkey, cold turkey, cold turkey. By the way, if this engine and boiler look at all familiar to you, then it's probably because in June 2 years ago I featured this boat, Emily Ann, which has the same make of engine. In fact, it's the only other narrowboat with this type. Listen to how similar it sounds. You won't be surprised to hear that Matthew is also part of the crew on Emily Ann, though he says there are some differences in the boats, due not to the engine, but the hulls.
Tixel appears to be a lot lighter. She's definitely more shallow drafted than Emily Ann. Because she's a traditional style instead of Dutch barge, she does cut through the water a lot easier. Whereas Emily Ann, especially in on the Trent and Mersey, which is quite shallow, she more or less pushes the water around her, and half of the energy is used getting all that water around the boat, whereas Tixel seems to just cut straight through and and off we go sort of thing.
Speaking of which, with the boiler now up to pressure and the engine warm, it was time for our journey to begin, so Matthew untied the lines ready to go. Noticing how mucky the smoke was, I asked him whether better coal would really cost that much more. Apparently so.
Welsh tin coal's nearly £1,000 a tonne now, whereas this Kazakhstan coal I'm getting it for just over 200 quid a tonne. Right then.
That's 5 times more expensive for the steam coal.
It is. Right then, let's go.
And with the prop shaft engaged, the boat gently eased away from the towpath. There was no doubt anyone would know we were coming. In the bow was fellow steam and classic boat enthusiast Francis, who you may have also spotted helming the heritage working boats Atlas and Malus in my BCN challenge videos. I've left links to them in the video description. A mere 50 yards or so further on, we approached what you may suddenly realise could be a problem, given the height of the chimney on the narrowboat. Never fear, they've thought of that. Yes, there might be the odd bridge that it couldn't get under, but by and large, that does the trick. Out the other side, it pops back up again, just one of the many quirks of driving a boat like this, which begs the question, how feasible is it to operate single-handed?
She's very easy to single man. I mean, I single manned her yesterday for a portion. A shovel of coal will last 15 to 20 minutes. So unlike constant shovelling like on the main line, literally just a shovel will last you 10-15 minutes, something like that. I've got a convenient bucket very close to the fire hole door. Literally, it's a case of quickly run down, shovel the coal on, back up again, and she handles very well. Obviously I slow down to near stopping before doing that, but you can single man it. Once you get into a rhythm of checking your fire, checking your water, checking where you're going, it's absolutely fine.
Locks are, of course, a commonplace element of our canals, and we approached the first for the day soon after. It turns out that when going by steam, there are considerations here too.
I go into locks a hell of a lot more slower than other boats, because of course I've got to take into consideration when I'm going to go into reverse, sometimes the engine will get stuck at top dead centre, so you've got to run down and move the flywheel ever so slightly and up you go again. So if you take all of that into consideration, it's actually quite easy boating.
Operating the lock itself is of course the same as it always is, and in this case, with Francis aboard, things were very straightforward as he opened the paddles while Matthew helmed the boat. And while the lock filled, he took the opportunity to shovel on a bit more coal and check the engine, which revealed a concern about the condenser suction. Possibly a blocked cooling inlet, which meant getting his arm wet scrubbing any debris out of the intake. And inside, the intake filter had a clear out too. The journey could then continue. Matthew says he's looking forward to living aboard full time.
I've sold my house. I've always wanted to live on the water. I inherited the house, you see, but it was just too big for me. It's just me and my dog. I just thought, if I'm going to live on a boat, I want it to be steam powered because, of course, I've got a traction engine as well. So steam's very much a big part of my life. And although there's only 9 steam narrowboats in existence, I'm the only person that lives on a steam narrowboat now. So yeah, it's quite unique. That's how I like it. It's characterful, shall we say.
After the clear out, the coolant seemed to be pumping correctly. The sound of the steam engine is certainly less intrusive than a diesel, and means you can hear nature as you go along. We'll gloss over what nature thinks of that smoke. There are only 9 steam narrowboats on the entire 2,000-mile canal network after all. No problem for the chimney here either. But then an issue. Trying to steer the back end in so that I could rejoin, the boat grounded on the silt, necessitating a reversing manoeuvre to get free. This it did easily, only to then encounter our first oncoming boat of the day.
Most of the boaters have a genuine understanding that we can't stop as quickly as them, we're not as manoeuvrable as them. So most of the boats do move out of our way. Going from forwards to reverse can take up to 10 seconds, and you can travel a very long way in 10 seconds. And yeah, a lot of boaters are quite considerate of the fact that we are a lot less, manoeuvrable than them, and they take that into consideration.
That's all very well in theory, but how was the reality of steamboat ownership working out?
Well, this is only day 2 of you actually owning this boat. How is it for real going along? We know you wanted it, but what's the real experience like?
It behaves so well. It really just cuts through the water. We've not used a lot of coal today at all. We're pulling a great vacuum in the condenser, which means that the recycling part of it's doing its job. The hot well's running hot, which means that the boiler's now running even more efficiently, because you want to keep the water warm so it takes less for the boiler to reboil it again. We're doing I'm really impressed. Considering up until yesterday, she'd been off the canal network for 3 years and hadn't moved at all from Ashwood Marina for 3 years. Touch wood, we haven't run, into any issues at all. I mean, we had a slight thing wrapped around the propeller this morning, but if that's all I've got to worry about, I'm happy with that. No, very impressed indeed.
Up in the bow was tranquility itself, gliding along the water, utter bliss. Every now and then, Matthew or Francis would dive briefly down into the engine room to fling a bit more coal on the fire.
Unsurprisingly, in here it is absolutely swelteringly hot.
The boat won't just be a static home for Matthew. He's got plans to take it to various events around the country. So if you'd like to see it and have a chat about steamboating, there should be plenty of chances.
We've got quite a busy season next year. We're doing a lot of boat shows around the Cheshire area. We're also going to make the most of the River Weaver. Of course, this year I'm going to do Aldlam Show. I've not booked the boat in. We're going to moor up at the public moorings and at least be part of it. And we're also doing the steam at Acton Bridge as well in October. And we're going to try and cram as many events in next year and make the most of it.
Ortherley Junction was dead ahead, where the Shropshire Union Canal joins onto the Staffordshire and Worcestershire. And it was up the Shroppie that Matthew would be heading in order to get to Aldlam for the first of those shows. Inevitably, not one, not two, but 3 other boats appeared out of nowhere, just as Matthew was ready to begin the slow turn into the junction and the stop lock that lies under the bridge. The boats were avoided without incident, of course. Matthew thinks steam engines have a certain magic about them.
They've got personalities as well. Some days they steam up very quickly, other days they have hissy fits and won't steam up at all. And that's the thing I love about steam. Every day is different. You could be burning the same coal, the weather conditions could be the same, and it will behave totally differently to the day before. They really do have mood swings, and I think that's why people like them so much, because they do have personalities.
As the boat glided into the lock, I stepped off, for this was my journey's end, and a walk back to the car beckoned. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.